what does it feel like to move to Auckland, New Zealand for 6 weeks to just get away from everything and like settle into yourself? Yeah, I think we all realize at a certain point, whatever linear path we had in our brain is not possible or not there, or it doesn't make sense. And then you're kind of unmoored for a certain time. Eventually, all these influencers and UGC content creators are going to be pretty visibly like bought and sold. Hey, we're selling magazines now. Do you want to buy one? We have a free trial for this system. Like, do you want to sign up for that? Like that is how you measure the strength of that to me. They're asking to be disrupted by these news influencers. And I think many of them care about getting it right and don't necessarily care about agenda. And I do think there is
Never Work a Day talks to folks that are pivoting their lives to follow their passions. We talk about pitfalls, misadventures, hilarious and heartbreaking, meet the outstanding individuals, and learn about their continuing journey. I'm your host, Nikki Frankel, purveyor of platforms and creator of play spaces, and I'm so excited to bring you the stories of these extraordinary individuals. Our guest today is Sean Blanda. Here's a bit of info about him. Number one, he grew up in South Jersey and went to Temple University in Philly, majoring in magazine journalism. Number two, was the co-founder of Technically Media, an editorial strategy consultancy firm and local tech news site. Number three, he was the managing editor, editor-in-chief, and director of 99U at Behance Inc. for Adobe. Number four, worked with a variety of organizations and publications as the editor-in-chief, editorial director, content director, and VP of content. Number five is the publisher of Sabbatical, highlighting ambitious people taking mid-career breaks. His consultancy is GateCheck Studios, working with small companies and startups to market their brand. And now here's Sean. Hi, Sean.
What's up, Nikki?
How are you?
I'm delightful.
Thank you for being here.
I'm so glad to be here.
You have been mentioned on this podcast at least 2 weeks in a row now by Joe and by Paul as the master connector. How do you feel about that exposure as an initial?
It's helpful when you happen to talk to two of, I don't know, the 10 people I know. So that's
so modest, so modest.
No, those are my guys. It's like one cool thing about careers is you enter in with like a class or like a generation and no one's important and no one knows anything. But eventually like people become important and people know things and then you all like ascend and go into leadership roles. And that's one of the cool things. So like definitely Joe and Paul and I met when we were young pups and now everyone's doing cool things.
Now everyone's doing cool things and talking about stuff and trying to make things
yeah.
better. And that's great. I know you from working together for like 3 years, 4 years, 3 years.
2012 to 2016.
Yes, 4 years. Yeah, we worked together on the 99U conference. That was a great conference. We did a lot of great things. Who came and DJ'd our conference a few times? You organized.
The two I remember is Wim Butler of was it DJ Windows 95? Was this
Yeah.
And then as a Philly guy, I was very proud to have Questlove at this exact moment where it wasn't like too famous to like DJ this party.
Yes.
And he apparently lived across the street from MoMA.
Yeah.
So he just walked across the street. And
like did it. And then I know that was a really good year.
Yeah.
And he was swamped. We used to do a party at MoMA in the lobby and it was like, you know, it was a thing. It
to
was
this
a
day,
jammer.
I'm not doing anything cooler. Like,
yeah, no, me neither. Me neither.
it.
Quite frankly. Well, we're very excited to have you on, and we're going to go a little bit into your origins.
Okay.
You went to Temple University, which so did my father, by the way, and he dropped out.
Are you serious?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes, because he was, and I think of it as an art school, but it's not really an art school. Is it an art school?
No, there's the Tyler School of Art, and then there's so Temple's history is like it's often a little less than that, but often like the first college, like if someone in their family, it's the first time someone goes to college, they go to Temple.
Like your first generation?
Yeah, first generation. Thank you. Yeah. And it was a commuter school. Most of the kids work when they're there. So it's like a really cool, like grit and grind mentality. It's a little less so now, but especially when your father was there.
Yeah. I mean, but also you majored in, what did you?
Magazine journalism.
Right, which
Remember
is hilarious.
magazines?
Is that a choose your own adventure kind of thing in terms of a major? Or did you find that? Was that on offer? Was that?
Yeah. Do you think I like made it up?
I don't know.
Well, right. So 2004 is when I started college, and it was like right at the precipice where like the internet was coming, but it didn't quite crash down on all media yet.
Right.
So they're like, newspapers will be around forever. We'll have newspaper journalism and magazine journalism, and they had broadcast journalism, and they had different. You just picture.
What was the difference between newspaper and magazine? Was it flashier? Were
my
there
God.
more colors?
So here's how I had to learn how to lay out pages and count circulation numbers, because that was an instrumental part to the magazine business, which obviously carried no weight immediately after graduating. But newspaper is more about how to report, less how to write, and magazines a little more how to write than how to report.
Right,
I'd say. Yeah.
larger sort of article forms.
Right.
Which was probably helpful.
Right, and like how do you divide a magazine, and how do you find your niche for a magazine, which is helpful for like this transition to online. Those skills do translate, I think.
Yeah, they do, right? Because you feel like a lot of the editorial or the online publications are a bit editorial and right?
Yeah. So instead of just, though it was really frustrating. You hear tales of the golden age of like magazine editors, like, I lived in Midtown. I got paid $10 a word. I had a bar cart and a free flight wherever. And you're like, now I'm blogging 5 blogs a day. Thanks.
That's what it would be instead.
Yeah.
And did your professors, what did they feel about the internet? Just curious, because I'm just taking a poll.
They were all retired journalists, which was cool because they had great legendary stories about like going to jail to protect a source and things. So you could like get that out. There was a Pulitzer Prize winner, that taught me, which is great. But they just had no stake in the future of the internet. So they were just like, I'm pretty sure this stuff is going to be different, but like you guys deal with that. I'm just going to tell you what I know.
Right.
Which is actually was great as a youth because it was like, oh, we're on our own here. Like we have to figure this out. And that's good empowerment to get when you're 20, I think.
I would think so.
Yeah.
That gives you onus,
right?
And makes you feel like you can own that industry going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious about you or anyone you've interviewed, but there's a way of doing college where people like, I just do what they tell me and job comes out the other end, and I don't think that's how it works anymore.
Nobody that I've spoken to on this podcast.
Maybe that's a coincidence, but there are people that
has
feel
had
that
that
way.
experience, and neither have I.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I went to school for theater, my teacher told me, "You're not going to make any money, and you're not going to do very well, but good luck to you."
I've come to appreciate that pessimism because it's like you should really want this because it's going to punch you in the face over and over again.
And I didn't appreciate that pessimism at the time. I thought,
like F you, buddy.
I thought like, F you. Well, like, what are you doing? Like, if you don't like it, if I don't, but now I see why it's important as an older person who's their age now.
Yeah. You got to put the children down first. So
you got to put the children down so they rise up against you. But did this mean that you were an early on editor then, right? You kind of.
Yeah, I was the online editor of my student newspaper, and that's how I kind of like got into this.
Yeah. And what did you like so much about editing anyway?
I like the idea of helping someone find what they want to say, right? Like a lot of people have a lot of knowledge or passion, and sometimes they can't quite articulate it, and being that like foil for them to extract it out of them and package it in a way that's good for the audience is like really interesting to me. And I've always gravitated to kind of like producer, curator kind of figures in culture. Like one of my favorite creative like models is Lauren Michaels. Like
me too.
He just like he cultivates talent. He's occasionally on camera, but it's all about like his taste and his eye for talent. And I really love that as like a model. So editing kind of like jives with that.
Yeah, you're involved with the platform that's going to build out.
Yeah.
And you're guiding it.
Yeah, some people need to be the guy on stage, and some people want to be the guy off to the side of the stage. And I'd rather be the guy off to the side of the stage, but
asking the questions.
Right.
Guiding the talent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good position to be in. Also, you have to sort of feel comfortable in your skin in that. So, I mean, you must have always sort of felt fine about kind of being in that position because it is a bit of a leadership position from early on, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. It's you have to every creative venture, including ones we've been a part of. There's always like one dogged kind of son of a bitch keeping everyone on task and has the vision and keeps everyone in that vision. And you need that person. That person is often separate from the forward-facing people.
Right.
And I think that separation helps everyone do their best work.
Yeah.
So.
And you are who in that scenario?
I like to be the son of a bitch when I can.
Okay. I'm just confirming.
Yeah.
I'm just confirming that's who you're talking about, which is yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, you did news media editing early on.
I did. Yeah.
And news media at the time meant what, really? I mean, was it tracking big corporations? Was it tracking trends?
Yeah, so I did a lot of internships at like newspapers at the time, and it was just like whatever they would sign.
What was your favorite newspaper to be interning at?
Oh my god, it's not my favorite, but the most guff I've ever got for anything is I just was taking whatever would pay me, and I wrote for, this is a real thing, Delaware Pets Magazine.
Ooh.
And I wrote an article about Dalmatians, which I won't bore you with, but there was like one throwaway line in there, and the Dalmatian people came after me.
Oh,
They
really?
flooded my inbox.
Oh my god! Don't.
And I was
say
like
anything,
the dog owners. Yeah, that was.
Don't say anything bad about dogs.
No, I would never.
No, they don't like it.
No, but it was just whatever would pay me. Honestly, it was pretty clear at that point that the trajectory of being like a hard scrabble news reporter and then working your way was just not there.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of like feeling my way in the dark at that moment and just trying to figure out what works.
Yeah, and you co-founded Technically Media though, which is the name of that.
Yeah, so
which is a good name.
Thanks.
Actually.
Yeah, it was a tech news site in Philadelphia, and it was myself, Brian Kirk and Chris Wink, all Temple classmates, and we all kind of saw this not burgeoning, but like renewed tech community in Philadelphia that had no outlet. And we would go to events to be packed, and we're like, no one's talking about this. This whole community that needs to be talked about. And this is where like the formal journalism training is resonant, because you're covering a community, and that can have a bunch of different definitions. So like a tech community is a community. So we covered it like we learned to. And that was like a real good learning experience.
Yeah. What did you produce from that then? What was it? Was it all newsletter?
Yeah, it was a website, news website. We updated every day. Newsletter. We founded the first Philly Tech Week. So it's a week of tech events, which actually I think is next week.
Oh, wow. You founded it.
Yes.
And what happened to it?
Still there. It's
and you're not running it anymore.
No. It was a lot of work I did 3 years ago. It was ready.
I mean,
that was right before 9
okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, but then is there a big tech community in Philly? Or
Yeah,
was there at
I would
the
say
time?
it waxes and wanes depending on a lot of factors, but
Okay.
it's like it has this New York has this gravity that pulls a lot of the people who like want to be quote unquote serious or like want to scale. So what you end up with is a lot of like people who want to bootstrap, people in lifestyle businesses, people who are content having a 10-person shop. So it's like a different kind of tech community, but it's there.
It's there?
Yeah.
And it's still there?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Philly, shout out to Philly Tech Week then next week.
Come on down to Philly Tech Week, although by the time you hear this, it'll be over.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Well, but by the time this episode launches, yes. But, but I hope it was a good one.
But I think it's instructive that like those pockets of people who are doing interesting things exist in different scales, in different sizes, in different places. And it may not look exactly the way you think, but they're there, and you have to find them and go there with like an open mind. And I think Philly rewards that.
Yeah, and that's still a good note, though, right? There's lots of communities all over the country that aren't being covered, that are in various industries, right?
Right. I mean, part of the trend of the past 15 years was this like amalgamation of talent in like SF, LA, DC, New York, and now we're seeing people kind of disperse back out to other, like the fact that like the Hudson Valley outside of New York is like so many people move to it, right? As an example, right? I know the influx to people in like Maplewood, New Jersey from New York is like huge, right? Like these like suburb and exurb creative communities are starting to develop as a result of like demographic trends. Right?
That's exciting.
Yeah. I think that's
it's not being documented. No one's really talking about it.
I was getting kind of bored. Everyone being an SF in New York, it was good for flight, but like it's cool now. You have people like building not giant, but like interesting products or services or businesses, and whatever, like Omaha or Tulsa or wherever. Like pick your spot. And I think there's more of a range that's been made possible through whether it's remote work or tools or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we need to saturate a little bit more the country because it's a big country, and we seem to be a lot of
we don't need the groupthink of everyone being in the same 5 square miles in Flatiron,
Yes, correct. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Let's all get out of the big cities and find our way to smaller places. Well, where you are now is I want to first talk about sabbatical because you're publishing it, because I'm excited about it as the thing that's happening. But it's basically a way to guide people through mid-career, right?
Yeah, it's something even since the 99U days, where I think we all realized at a certain point, whatever linear path we had in our brain is not not possible or not there, or it doesn't make sense. And then you're kind of unmoored for a certain time. And I think we all have had these moments. And I've had several moments of that in my life, and I didn't find a thing that tied it to travel directly. When a lot of people take sabbaticals and they go travel for a few months and then they kind of settle in their brain and then they come back renewed, I would either find like super travel hacky things like here's how to survive on $10 and 9 hostels, or it's like here's how to get the most out of your Rome, Italy trip, and not this like long-term travel. Like, what does it feel like to move to Auckland, New Zealand for 6 weeks to just get away from everything and like settle into yourself, and like talking to people who've done that, either as themselves or as a family.
Yeah, I mean that's good to be able to talk about that and give people support around that. There's other things they can do to kind of keep. Is it mental health though, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, because
it kind of falls into that.
Yeah, it's something I've tried to write about and seems to be a trend is people realize they need a break. They're so burnout, or not burnout and like tired, but burnout and thinking about the same thing, and they need a refresh. And then the only way to let new stuff grow is to clear the old stuff.
Right.
And that is an awkward phase where you clear out every part of your identity that exists before. I own a business. I'm a VP of whatever. I am an entrepreneur, whatever. And you clear that all away, and then you're like, what is left?
Right.
And it's like looking into the abyss. It's incredibly
scary journey.
It's incredibly scary, having gone through it myself, and I'm sure people listening to this have. And the only way is to build that back up, like cut it down and build it back up.
And it's rebuilding your identity.
Yeah, and that is terrifying. And it's also terrifying to think you're alone. It's also terrifying to think you're doing it incorrectly. So I wanted to share some stories of people who have going through it or have gone through it to kind of say like, hey, there's not one way to do this. Here's a bunch of paths.
Did you have one you did this though yourself?
Yes.
Yeah. Where did you go?
Actually, it was after 99U. I took off 5 months. I turned 30, went to Burning Man, got married,
I mean,
and then left.
Was that the first Burning Man?
That was the first and only. I'm
Burning Man?
probably not going to go back.
A lot of sabbaticals. Do a lot of sabbatical stories start with Burning Man?
I'm sure.
Okay, I'm
sure.
just
Based on my experience. But and then traveled for 5 months, and with my new wife, and we're like, where are we going to live? What are we going to do? We both quit our jobs. Like, how's this going to work? And really like just reprioritize what was like important to us, and like that was really instructive and useful for me in my life. And now I'm kind of in a similar transitionary phase, which we can talk about, but just allowing yourself to be patient with yourself, gracious with yourself, let new things pop up, not force things is like, everything I'm telling you is like way easier to say than actually do.
I mean, it's all difficult to do.
If you catch me on the wrong Monday morning and I'm like, I'm useless. I've had every good idea I'm ever going to have. I might as well go open a taco stand down the street and just
Well, you should go do that. I mean, we should do that. Anything that we need to do to keep ourselves.
Maybe I should.
That sounds like a good idea. I mean, you're also working with Gate Check Studios.
Yeah. So that's my consultancy where it's kind of tie these threads together. The last job I had was for 5 years, and I realized that startups were changing, venture capital funded companies were changing, COVID changed everything, which we all know. We were all there.
It's true.
Yeah, I love when people like try to like talk about the effects of COVID. It's like we all
know.
It literally affected everyone. It's one of the only things in the world that affects everybody. And the rise of like AI, and then the takeover of like various like these social media platforms by different entities has like really just like changed how I did my job. And I just wanted space to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I put up Gate Check Studios, like a marketing consultancy. And the thing they tell you when you start a business is to niche down and have a target audience. And I did not do that. I was just like, who wants to talk about marketing? And from that, actually, I have a handful of clients. And I'm working through these issues with them.
Right.
So I am both building a business, but also kind of funding my own discovery of the space.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, and so
this all sounds neat in retrospect, but in the moment, it's kind of like thrashy.
Well, it's all over, of course,
yeah.
because it's consultancy. But you are working with people on trying to figure out what their companies are, what their branding messaging is.
Yeah, like a lot of people like have like, hey, I'm a product guy and the product works and I have customers, but like, how do I market in 2025? And I want to move very quickly and I don't have the money to hire like a $300,000 CMO, like help. And that's like where I've found I cannot move really fast because of my experience, but also because all these AI tools mean one person can do the job of four in lots of ways, especially operationally.
Yeah.
So it's been a good learning experience to see, like, challenge myself, like how big can I make my impact across all these different places?
I mean, does it make you want to go back into, are you writing about any of these things still? Or
It makes me want to return to collaborating with other people, because when you're solo, you can move so fast and you don't have to check with anyone. And the amount of dumb Zoom calls I'm on has gone down to like 0. And that's been awesome. And I can like take my kid out of school when I want to go have ice cream. Like, it's great.
Yeah.
But the downside is, like, from a creative output perspective, I really miss just working with like talented people, like you, like Lenny, and like sitting in the same room and just being like, we're going to make something cool and hard and we're going to rely on each other. And like, that feels better than anything you do.
I agree. Because working in a vacuum can be, it's just, you're up against yourself and your own sort of ability to continue to do things.
Yeah.
And I definitely struggle with that on a daily basis in terms of like, you have to keep on motivating yourself. You have to, wake yourself up. You have to get yourself ready.
Right. Yeah. Well, it can be a closed loop in your head after a while. Your creativity can be a closed loop, right? You need outside influences, and you need tension, and you need debates, and you need argument. You need people to pull that out of you.
You need to be able to run things off of you. You can't be the only one to bounce things off of, because you can only have so many personalities inside your
right. And I miss, that is the thing I miss. So I try to think of careers as like kind of like a heads up, heads down kind of mindset. Like, heads up, you're learning, you're taking in, you're not worried about the doing so much. You just want to like add more ingredients to your mental kitchen, so to speak. And then eventually you're like, all right, I know where I want to go. And then I think it's, you put down and execute. I think I'm like in some transition of being like heads up to like heads down.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Talk to me in 3 months.
All right. Well, we'll see what it is in 3 months. I mean, we should talk about 99U a little bit, because that was because we worked on that for so long. And for those that don't know, it was a really great magazine. It was a conference, and that's what my team and I worked on.
Mm-hmm.
But the publication itself meant a lot to a lot of people in the community.
Yeah.
Both digitally, and it was a beautiful product. It was a beautiful magazine.
Mm-hmm.
from all of your like education of magazine studies.
That was not me. That was that was our fleet of talented designers.
There was a lot of
Yeah.
talented designers, but I have talked to, I mean, Paul and I touched on this, that there's a bit of a hole in the industry for support for people that are creatives, I guess.
I heard that. I thought that was interesting. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I feel like personally, I think a lot of companies were investing in creativity before the pandemic. And then the pandemic happened and nobody had any money and nobody knew what to do. And now they're investing in product, but they don't really care so much. In my sort of overview of it, they don't seem to be wanting to invest in community or supports for the people using the products as much, that they're not sure the value add on that. So the people that were creating these really creative conferences, which were a lot of ones that I was doing for a while, are not giving anything towards that. So it's sort of up to the individuals, the creatives themselves, to kind of build these communities. And creatives are can be tangent oriented occasionally, can be easily distracted, and so I think there is still a hole for it, and maybe it's something we all have to fill together.
Well, I think what we're seeing is like a pendulum from brands and institutions to individuals, right?
Exactly.
And there's, I think, there's economic reasons or trust reasons that's happening. But I do think this will, and you're starting to see it come back, where this kind of solo influencer culture thing is like starting to crack a little bit for lots of reasons we can get into.
Thank goodness.
And well, I mean, I think it's like a brush fire. Like, there were too many conferences. There were too many brands trying to do this. There were too many, and they were all looking kind of samey at a certain level.
Sure.
Like, that creative destruction had to happen. And I think this influx of individual creative like communities was very helpful. But now I think it's starting to like, we're seeking like camaraderie. IRL is back in a big way. I mean,
yes,
you can
correct.
speak to that, right? Like, people are ready for authenticity. People are ready to connect with one another. I just feel like we're starting to like claw that back a little bit. And I think we will see a version of what 99U was to so many people soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think
maybe it's there.
I think it's all just about who's going to be the one to push that message along, and when it's an organization or a company, it's a bit easier to kind of get it off the ground.
Yeah.
And so individuals can still do it, obviously.
Yeah, I'm seeing this like, so 99U was the product of Behance, which was a product, right? And
exactly,
one of the things that the founder of that company, Scott Belsky, always used to say that sticks with me is we are mission focused and median agnostic, right? Like, we do not care necessarily the articulation of this mission, but the mission of empowering creative communities is in everything we do. And I think we're seeing some companies rediscover their mission, and then we're going to see that articulate out in different ways, which will include conferences, but may not, maybe other stuff too.
But that's great to hear. What industries do you see that happening in? Because
so I'm very like tech startup focused, like Paul, but I also like dabble in a few other things. And I think what a lot of people went into survival mode when the COVID funding glut excess just withered away, like the tide going away
immediately,
and everyone's like, we have to survive. And you saw this even in like creative industries, like Hollywood, right? They had the survive till 25 like mantra because of the writer's strike. They're like, let's just get through this like cataclysmic force that is washing over us. And I think now that people have survived or mostly survived, they're ready to grow and look out again. And then the other thing I think that's happening is, especially in tech, you can only say you're the AI empowered whatever so many times, and before everything starts sounding the same.
Yeah.
So you need brand. You need ways of differentiating.
You need to come back.
You need a viewpoint on the world that is different from your peer and your competitor. And I think we're seeing that start to rise.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. I can never tell whenever I think these things, is this because I want to think it? But I genuinely do think this is the case.
I mean, everything is feeling very samey. Everything is feeling very similar to itself.
Because everyone's clinging to a dinghy in an ocean right now. And now it's like settling down, and they can start,
and they can start actually figuring out who they are and what the rest and what that looks like.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, so because 99U, for that though, you did run that publication. You did direct that conference. So did you feel like those conversations with creatives, you're still sort of having those with Sabbatical in a way, right? I mean, is it like you want to continue having those conversations? You want to keep on spotlighting those people potentially, right?
Yeah, I think the kind of every community has its like psychographics and its things it's struggling with, its existential struggles. And the creative community at the time of 99U was effectively like, how can we get a seat at the table?
Right.
Like big business is occurring and we're just getting overlooked. Like how do we influence? And we know we can, and we know businesses that invest in design and think about design and think thoughtfully, like do better. Like how do we do
How do
that?
you infiltrate
And I would
that?
say like largely like mission accomplished. Like I think
For
most
real.
people, I think most people know that, right? So then I think with the sabbatical, it's been reduced to the individual, which is how do I feels like control, right? Like so much of what happens to me. I don't do it, right? Like some algorithm decides it's the right thing to do,
Right.
right? Or I rely on like some business to like, be a benefactor, and I feel less in control.
Right.
And that's been a lot of the struggle I find when I talk to, and the sabbatical conversations I have are people saying, I kind of like got away from who I wanted to be. Like I just let things wash me in a certain direction, and I need to like reorient.
Yeah, because we're all needing to come back and see what we want to be doing
Right.
and what our stakeholding is on all of.
I talked to one woman who was working, for a tech company doing design, and she was incredibly burnt out, and she took a sabbatical, and she just did like nothing for 3 months. She's like, I thought I would take 2 weeks off. She's like, I was so creatively tapped. I need to like let it refresh. And then she just started doing random creative projects. Like she put on a play. She got really into like baking. She started like sewing costumes for her friends' like art shows or whatever. Just like anything to kind of like reinvigorate that creative like curiosity in her. And then she realized like, oh, I'm okay working in tech. I just need something where I have like a creative outlet where I'm not just managing a bunch of like people.
Right. Well, finding another work, another life outside of the work, right?
Right. And it's like reorienting. And like that took a year of her hanging out in like Seattle,
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it takes what it takes, right?
Yeah.
And that's good that you're finding it. And it's nice that you're spotlighting that because people don't always feel like they can give themselves that time.
Right. They feel it's like linear. Like I need to show up at a cocktail party and be like, here's the cool thing I'm working on. And it's like not really interesting to be like, I don't know, everything's the abyss to me right now. And I'm just clawing my way around.
And that's
Here's some
the
pretzels.
more realistic response to what is happening, right?
Right.
And I think it's also we beat ourselves up about we can't really have the time. Why do we deserve to have that extra time?
Yeah, there's definitely that, right? And there's like obviously a degree of privilege to be able to take some time away.
Yeah.
But I think the resources it takes to do that are less than most people would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just letting yourself go a little bit.
Something I've been interested to as a parent, as I know you are as well, which is like people taking sabbaticals with kids.
I was like, that's not a sabbatical. I was going to ask, did she have kids?
That's a trip. Like, that's not a vacation,
that's
right?
That's not totally different.
No, but it was like the parents that take it tend to think less about their career and more about like what they want to accomplish in their life. So someone else I spoke to, she was always planning this trip, and then her brother-in-law passed away like very suddenly when he was like 40. Oh. And she's like, oh, I could be planning for this forever, and who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
So she like pulled her kids out of school, and she was like worried they were going to like get held back. And the school's like, actually, this is great. Just do these assignments and you'll get credits. And this is such a good learning opportunity. And she took her 2 children all around the world for like 11 months. And like, they met all different kinds of people, and then she learned how resilient her own kids were. Like she was worried that like, oh, if they don't have like the perfect bed and they don't sleep in these dark rooms.
Kids don't mind.
Right. But as parents, we think.
I know.
Right.
But then I learned.
We're like, they need us. No, they only a little bit, right? And she's like, oh, they're resilient. I'm learning more. As a family, we can reference this forever. And it was like just a thing. She felt more whole. So now when she could go back and enter her kid back into school, like they picked up their life back where they were. And now like she didn't have this itch to travel as much anymore. She felt like she accomplished this thing. She's closer with her family and like hop back into the job market and like at the same or near the same earning level, which is like not something you think would be possible, or at least I wouldn't.
Well, I wouldn't.
Right.
And that's good. That's good for her.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, part of my excitement to create this podcast is I was in a ballroom running a conference, and I thought, I don't want to tell my daughter this is what I do.
Right. No, it's really great.
I don't want to be, I want to like give her something more that she could be excited about in regards to my work.
Right.
Because you get pulled away from your kids, and it's like, why are you getting pulled away?
Yeah. Like, is this worth it?
Is it worth it to not be hanging out with them right now and having ice cream, to just like be sending a report or whatever you might be doing? It makes you question.
Nikki, I forgot to inform you, we sound like middle-aged, like these kids.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everybody.
These kids really do it to you. No.
These kids really do it to you.
No,
well,
it is true.
Because we're new parents, or I'm a new parent. She's only 2.5. You have 2 parents. You have 2 kids.
I do.
Yes.
But I think what we're talking about, right, is like finding your identity outside of your work and how that identity interplays with your work.
Well,
And that changes over the course of your life.
It does. And also the way you also know that your kids are looking to you to see what you're doing and what your stress level is. My father, who was a madman, who was part of that, you know, had like martinis in his office or whatever, had a heart attack at like 50, you know, and and he was super stressed. And I saw that and that affected how I relate to career and how parenting works in relation to career. And you want to make sure your kids don't see you pissed off about your work all the time. Or even your, you know, and it also pertains to your partner, you know, too.
I have this one friend where it's that we hear that cautionary tale. And I've had that in my life in different ways. But there's this other side where the dad worked on, he had like a lifestyle like software business where he worked like, I don't know, 10 hours a week. So they never saw their dad work, and their mom didn't have to work because the dad's business was doing so well. So they never saw, their parents were around like, all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So this sounds, you're like, that's the ideal.
But that's probably not.
It's not, right? Because then they're like, what does it take to have this lifestyle that we have?
Yeah.
Like how,
they don't get to see it.
Right. And you know, there's 4 kids and they each react differently. And some are like, oh, I need to like lock in and realize what hard work is. And others are like kind of meandering, like, why don't I just have the same thing? And it's like really funny. Like we have to show our children what it looks like to commit to something and work hard and like what that sacrifice is, but we can't let it embitter us at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Well, I mean, do you say when you have to go to work and your kids are like, why do you have to work? Do you say, I usually tell her that I have to buy her stuff. I said, you know, I do, because she says, Mommy, buy. And I say,
you want that Bluey figure?
I'm like, okay, well, you want me to buy you that stuff? Well, I got to go to work. And my parents say the same thing to her. And so she knows that that's what that, I don't know if that's a good, I don't know how that parenting
I haven't,
goes.
yeah, I haven't had to explain myself.
Oh, really?
Not yet.
I have to explain myself every day. Well, I wanted to know, just before we go off on tangents on children, because for those that don't, you know, know what we're talking about, I'm curious, what is in a brand to you? That's a very general question, but when you talk to startups about brands, what is sort of your log line on that?
So the business answer is you are selling an expensive thing, and people won't be ready to buy that expensive thing, but you want them like in your orbit. So when you are ready, they know to come to you in general. That's like my funnel answer to them. My like creative answer to them to that question is when you ask the industry, your ideal customer profile, what they think of this company, like what is the answer that comes back? Like that is it. And then kind of secondarily is like and the strength of that brand is when you ask your customers or community to do something, do they do it? And that could be like, take this survey, buy this ticket to this conference. Hey, we're selling magazines now. Do you want to buy one?
Yeah.
We have a free trial for this system. Like, do you want to sign up for that? Like that is how you measure the strength of that to me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, and how do you get people to buy into that then? You create a story that somebody likes. You create
people being the businesses to believe in that, or the customers to believe it.
I mean, both of those things. I mean, both of those angles. It's how do you get people to buy into it, and how do you, build out those people that buy into your idea?
So on the audience side, it is make stuff that makes their life better. And it sounds like so simple, but that's the hardest thing in the world to do.
It's hard.
It is the hardest thing in the world to do because you have to understand them and you have to meet them where they are and you have to give them the format.
Yeah.
And any sale or like, hey, you can also buy this thing should be when you're ready. Like we're over here. I'm not lying to you. This thing is connected to this thing. I'm not.
Yeah.
But like when you're ready. And I think that is how I try to kind of appeal to the customers. Like you cannot buy anything from Behance at all. That's fine. You will still get a lot out of 99U. And you will, even if you don't buy from Behance, someone will ask you for the right portfolio site or the right conference to go to.
So it's all kind of
sales.
And,
I mean, everything is sales at the end of the day.
Everything is sales
right?
at the end of the day, yeah.
But the way I explain it to the customer, or sorry, the business is they often go through these like waxing and waning of like, we need performance marketing. Like we need stuff that makes the numbers go up. That's all I care about. Like I don't care about this touchy-feely stuff. And then they run 2 years in that direction. And it gets harder and harder and harder. And they're like, why doesn't anyone listen to us? It's because your brand is very bad, right? You're transactional. Like that is not going to do you any service. So you need to build something that stands the test of time. So when you are ready to say something salesy, they're receptive to it. They trust you.
It's hard though. It's hard when you're running a business to
Yeah.
be able to see that though, to be able to not just say like, this thing isn't working, let's pivot to this thing, you know?
And it sounds like, especially I'm learning this on the consultant side, it's like so easy for me to be like, trust me for 18 months and this will happen. And I do believe that. And I think I like to think I have a track record for that. But like in the meeting, it's like, people are very skeptical and they should be.
Yeah. Well, because it's a big investment
Right.
and you don't know what's going to work. You don't know what's going to hit necessarily. It's hard to always know.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think there was also a period in like called 2021, 2, where everyone was investing in like community marketing and content marketing and video to the point where it all started globbing to the same. And I started advising people like run the other way. Just be like, we're not going to waste your time. We're selling a thing. Do you want to buy the thing? This is what the thing does. Let's move on with our lives. Like
right,
I kind of
like more transactional
honestly,
would
yes,
have been better because
like clarity and
just
directness.
avoiding the trends potentially, right? Like a brand, like not doing what everyone else is doing.
Right. I'm talking tactics. Obviously, there's a way a brand sounds and feels. That should not change too often. But like, yeah, just like when you sit in these marketing meetings, there's these waves that people try to ride, and you have to always balance like, let's ride that wave, but let's not make that our entire strategy because there will be another wave. There'll be another platform that rise and crest. And I think we've all been in this career long enough where like we all did like, I don't know, optimize keywords, or we ought to be on like MySpace or whatever. Like it all just like keeps like
we have to keep on doing all the things that and it's like a big treadmill of things. Yeah. I mean, then the trend would be right now. What's the trend? So if you were advising someone on what to do,
there's two.
What do you got?
There's two big trends. One is
because you do write things on LinkedIn.
I do, which is quickly not becoming a real thing anymore either. But I kind of call it like the internet's becoming like an archipelago where there used to be these pools of audience you could go to reach people somewhat reliably, right? Whether it's Google or Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. And part of that was possible because Nikki is posting on Instagram and I follow Nikki. And every time Nikki posts something, I get what Nikki says. And like, you're building an audience. Now it's algorithmic based. Right. Like I follow you, but Instagram's like, maybe I'll show you some things that Nikki sends. And as a result, these companies have built these large followings on these platforms and they've been like neutered effectively overnight. So now they don't know how to reach people.
Right.
And what they're doing instead is like they're kind of clawing around the dark. So this is where like influencer marketing comes from. They're like, well, if I don't have the reach, let me pay people who do have the reach.
Yeah.
But that's quickly waning, and for lots of reasons happy to nerd out about.
You can nerd out about.
So no one knows what to do right now, right? Everyone's like, nothing is working. And then what I am recommending to the clients is just go back to zero. Like you are building your audience one person at a time now. There's the universe is gone where you could dump $1,000 into Facebook ads and suddenly have 10 customers. Right. It's gone. It's done. So I have to convince like you one at a time and you one at a time. And I have to do individual outreach and I have to work through partners and I have to establish trust and I have to build a reputation and a business. And it's trench warfare and it's so slow, but it is the only way to sustainably and reliably do this now. Right. And that is a very difficult sell for people who've come up in the age of I put money in bucket A and money comes out of bucket B. Yeah. And I a lot of the marketing people I talk to are like secretly like panicking because they're like, the thing I used to do no longer works.
It no longer works.
Right. And so, I mean, that's trend one. And
that's a scary thing. And is that primarily because of the algorithms? Primarily, what's happening with influencer content and paying influencers? So yeah, I need nerd out about that for like a little bit. So
it's like kind of like it was like a fertile space where these influencers were building audience, and for a while, with a few exceptions, their audiences weren't big enough to matter to like people to invest in it. And this goes all the way to like, I don't know, Coca-Cola caring to like Salesforce, right? A software company. And everyone is realizing that the pools of audience are shrinking. So they're running to the few pools of audience, which are influencers. So now these influencers are just like hired guns. They're just like, who's gonna dump a wad of cash in my lap and I will post about that. Yeah. There's this new phenomenon called UGC, which is user generated content, where the influencers actually have no viewpoint. They're just like, I will spokesperson for whoever pays me money. Which if you play this out, like, why would I follow someone if all you are is a vessel for these brands?
Of course.
So this is where I'm seeing like the atrophy of that channel. Right. Right. And then
people are getting too greedy and they're watering down whatever their following is potentially.
And also to talk about brand, right? The brand is quickly becoming whatever works on a given channel. Like many TikTok videos sound the same. There's a TikTok voice, right? Same with Reels or Instagram or whatever. And instead of I don't want to, let's do Coca-Cola, right? Like Coca-Cola like has a viewpoint, and instead of saying like Coke makes you smile and happy and whatever their branding has been, it's just like whatever Mary in Boise, Idaho, who got $1,000 from Coke wants to say.
Right.
And like
about the messaging of Coke, right? 'Cause
Right.
they're
So,
not,
so then like everything becomes the same.
Yeah.
Everything's even flatter than it's already been.
it's like Coke is great.
Right. But so is whoever else is paying me. And
Yeah.
and I've been in clients. I've actually lost clients because I've lost the battle where they're like, we are going to spread $50,000 a month to influencers, and we think that's going to do more than the brand marketing you're saying. And I'm like, in the next 3 months, it will. Absolutely. It's going to kick my ass. But like, I'm here in 12 months when this thing atrophies. Like, see you later.
After that, yeah. Because if you can buy them, anyone could buy them.
Right. And I do think there's a kind of media literacy thing that needs to happen in which the average consumer doesn't quite realize this pay to play is happening right now. Right?
Well, they're not really seeing it that way, which is funny that they're not. I mean,
because they're like, I can trust them. They're an individual. This is where the trust pendulum is going to go back and forth, because eventually all these influencers and UGC content creators are going to be pretty visibly like bought and sold.
I'm curious about how you see that in regard to like news, in regard to journalism and news.
Yeah.
Because I produce a lot of conferences for the International News and Media Association, and there's conversations about these news influencers that get a lot more attention than the newspapers do, for example, right? And those people have not necessarily worked in a newsroom. They're not necessarily journalists,
right?
And I have people that are personally in my life that really follow those people.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what you think about that, because those people have yet to be bought by the newspapers.
Right.
Well, somehow actually
there's been a few, like I think the Washington Post like paid their, maybe I think it's their like TikTok explainer person like a celebrity, like they paid them hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep them.
Right.
I think what you're seeing is the decoupling of the distribution and the reporting. Right. Before these things were the same. The Washington Post reports it and also distributes it. And what they're finding is they can only do one of those things effectively at a time.
Yeah.
And they should focus on reporting.
Yes.
But as a result, then they have to find new distribution channels.
Correct.
And most people in these journalistic outlets are not good at tracking distribution. Like my hometown newspaper, the Philadelphia Inquirer, the app still doesn't quite work the right way, and it's been like 6 years. Like it's like, and it's like that. So like it is. They're asking to be disrupted by these news influencers, and I think many of them care about getting it right and don't necessarily care about agenda. And I do think there is a positive there. There's also the opportunity for it to be hijacked for like partisan ends in every way. And right now we're in this gap where the literacy of the audience hasn't quite caught up with how the platforms work. Like, can you imagine being around when like the radio was invented and you're like, oh, before I had to wait hours for news to get to me, and now it's just being beamed directly into my house.
I know
it would take a while to figure out how to navigate that. And every time there's a platform shift from, I don't know, Telegram to radio to broadcast news to cable news to the internet, there's like great social upheaval every time. And that's what we're seeing right now, because the platform is shifting to these individuals and to these platforms. And that is resulting in like a crisis of what we think is true.
Yeah. Everything is sort of up for grabs in terms of what is true and what not is true, because it's whatever anyone is saying. If you say something, then it's true automatically, potentially.
Right. And I think the consumer kind of knows when they watch whatever, a cable news talk show, they're just like, this is different than a newspaper, a magazine, or the evening news. Like in general, I think the average person can like parse those two things. I don't think the average person can parse the influencer thing. Like, can you imagine, you said your dad was a madman, right? Like there was probably an era he was working where he only had to advertise on 3 networks.
Correct.
And
That's right.
And then there was 1,000.
Yes.
And he would probably
it changed the whole.
And he probably was like, "What is happening?"
Well, he did Court TV, he did MTV, he did Nickelodeon.
Right. So he rode that wave.
He did the cable. He advertised for the cable.
And I'm sure he had peers being like, and that's what's happening right now in both marketing and culture and content. Is the mirror is just being shattered into ever increasing number of pieces.
What do you think, as somebody that did do journalism?
Yeah.
I mean, because there is a major crisis with that. I think the micro influencers, while they can be bought for products, do you think they can be bought? Do you feel like
yes? This actually happened. There was
Isn't that happening?
Well, there was like, not to get too newsy, but there was like foreign governments with on the record payments to news influencers, right? Like they don't have as many ethics. And in many cases, the influencers didn't know where the source of the money was coming from. They were just taking the money.
They were just taking the money to say whatever they were going to say.
This is all like the messy stuff that shakes out when we shift the way we talk to each other. So like this is going to be the story of the rest of our lives, is like this cataclysm reorganizing itself. and it's going to be messy and painful the
It's
entire
going to
time.
continue to be messy and painful until
it settles, until there's a whole generation that came up where this is native and it doesn't change, right? Like that's also helpful.
Sure.
You know, like
or do people not get paid for messaging anymore? Or do you? I mean,
I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to pretend to know. I'm not going to pretend to know.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard to say because it could just.
But I think recognizing this change is occurring, right?
Yes.
And I ladder everything back up to like media dynamics. Like it is harder to reach an audience reliably, so people will get increasingly desperate and extreme to do so. And as long as that's true, we're going to see
you're going to keep on seeing what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, but what you were saying, you were trying to figure out what's authentic. Well, what does authentic even mean then in a situation that we're in right now, where
like news authentic, or what do you?
Any kind of authentic content. What is authentic content? Because everyone wants to be authentic now, but is that just a word to say?
Well, there's always like a commercial interference layer, right? Unless it's a hobby project, like. There's the influence of money and the influence of the audience. And that works both ways. Have you ever heard the phrase audience capture?
Not recently.
It's when you are only responding to the requests of your audience.
Okay.
So you just end up spiraling into like this increasingly extreme position often. Right. Or like, you know, you're not open to new ideas. You're just reacting in conversation with the same group
You're just
of people.
being reactionary.
Right.
Right.
And then you can do it on the other end where it's like, where does the money come from? Like, let me align. And the people who have been most thoughtful and I think survived the longest have the right balance of those commercial interests and audience interests and platform interests. And there's a reason we don't say people sell out anymore, because you have to somewhat sell out because of the economics of this work. And I think being transparent about where you're getting your opinions, where you're getting your money is like the best we can hope for.
So just transparency.
Right now. I wish it was better, but I think that's where we're at.
So transparency is how you stay authentic, I guess, right?
I think.
Right.
But
so
like
content, so
people smarter than me are trying to figure this out. But I think it's people are operating in a very low trust environment. Everyone's default on the internet, especially like default skepticism of things they don't know.
Right.
And they should be. And you have to win that trust by being like transparent, showing up and being consistent
and being real.
This is all like, and this is all like kind of boring. It's boring to say out loud because it's hard. Like boring things are hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's boring, but it's also you have to be really strong with your point of view then, right? You have to stay within what your messaging is. You can't really waver on your sort of on how you come out, on what your brand is or what your ethos is. You know, you have to sort of stay the course with it, I guess, in order to navigate the waters.
I go through this with my clients where like corporate mission statements and like personal mission statements like sound like some way of like some brand marketer to like extract money from you for a workshop. But I do think it matters because you need, I had a boss that called the mission statement an argument ender. Like when we do not know what we are supposed to do, if you can like tie it back to the mission, that ends the argument. That's the point of the mission.
Right.
And it should preclude us from doing things, and it should include us include different options as well. And I think that is the authenticity, is like you have a pretty crystallized version of whatever your personal or brand mission is, and you stick to it. Right. And the way that is expressed can change, but like you stick
There's
to
a log line. There's a one.
And I as the audience know what that is.
It's an elevator pitch. It's whatever you say that you can always go back to. That always sort of is your compass.
Yeah, you need. I guess you can go sail in the ocean, but you need to return to land every now and then.
Right, and you need to be able to see where you're going. Yeah. So I mean, I think that maybe then we've.
I hope. Yeah.
It's the hardest.
It's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing because no one trusts anyone to say nothing of like.
But that just means you have to be really focused on your mission, or you have to be really focused on what your company's doing, or One
of my favorite quotes is Nietzsche, which is the height of human stupidity is forgetting what we're trying to accomplish.
That's a great quote.
And you need to know what you're trying to accomplish.
You need to always stay focused on it and not get distracted by the micro influencers or the trends on anything else.
Yeah, because that stuff will wash away, right?
Yeah.
And that is the hard part about running a business, in which sometimes the timeline of your company is not long enough to afford you to do that.
Do you think there's one company right now that's really staying the course with mission that you admire and that you like? Curious.
Yeah,
not to put you on the spot.
No, I don't.
Because
this isn't my mission. I don't want this to be seen as an endorsement.
No.
But I think CoinDesk has been pretty upfront about what they're doing. They're like, we want to increase the GDP of the world via crypto. I'm not a crypto person. I don't particularly like crypto, but like everything they do, they're lobbying Congress that way. They're running their team that way. Like the products they build are that way. They're attacking the banks in that way. They're fighting regulations in that way. Like everything is ladders up to that. And I think that is like edifying. Like you don't work there and get surprised by that. Like you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And that kind of fidelity of mission is really cool. Again, not my personal mission, but I like that the doggedness.
No,
of
but
that
it's
company.
good to see that there's and once you have that mission, it has so many legs, right? It can go in all these different
and
directions.
you talk about authenticity, like they're lobbying Congress, which could be seen as an inauthentic thing, but they're like, no, we're doing the thing we say we're going to do. We're just doing it over here, and we're doing it over here.
No, I mean lobbying isn't inauthentic
Right.
in itself. It's just it's been polluted by.
Are you lobbying? Are you lobbying?
Am I
for
lobbying
this
right
podcast?
now?
Yeah.
Am I lobbying for this podcast?
Yeah.
Wouldn't know where to begin with lobbying for this podcast. Well, then, I mean, in relation to then all of what's happening, I mean, I've been asking a lot of guests about AI recently because, and
why is something going on?
Why is something happening with AI? I don't know. Is anything going on? I mean, people have a variety of different opinions on it. And I think it really does. I do feel like the conversation about whether it's going to get rid of jobs or whatever is a privileged position.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like privilege as in people that are college graduates usually are the ones that are worried about AI doing something. So,
Ironically, for once, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, do you have any feelings about it? What are your current feelings on it? Because it's nice to know what people think and differing thoughts around the future.
I've been loving this generation of the internet for two reasons. One, if you take from call it 2013 to 2021, the dynamics of the internet were pretty static. It was like Twitter was what it was, Instagram what it was, like Google was what it was. And I was starting to get like, is everything locked? Is everything getting calcified? And the introduction of AI has like totally like shattered that in weird and interesting ways. So like it's been good as like this renewal of like we have to think about everything again. That's been fun. The other thing that's been fun is the way it extends. We talk about having a mission or having authenticity. If you know what that is, these tools extend that in like really profound ways. So I run a one-person consultancy. So the thing I want to do is help my clients reach their audiences. Is typing up a proposal to that mission? No, but I need to do it to run the business. So like I use AI and I do it, right? And then I move on. So I can keep the main thing,
right,
and outsource this like non-creative operational work.
Yeah.
And that has made my ability to move faster and have a bigger impact like better. Or I can roll my own software now. Like I don't need a developer. Like I just do it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I wish I could have done that when I was 14.
I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge for any small business. It's
Right. So just all that I'm like very excited and pro. I understand with every technology
there's concerns about it.
Yeah.
But as coming from a small business, yes, it's a super great tool to be able to utilize.
And also people are concerned about like it taking over the creative side. If I cannot beat someone just using ChatGPT to write stuff, then I suck.
Right.
Right. Like I it's more competition, it's harder, but I'm not as panicked about its takeover of creativity in the way that some people are.
Yeah. I mean, I've found that I'm still feeling like creativity is necessary because the prompts are still there and the taste level still needs to be there. And there's a lot of sort of elements that
some bad AI art out there.
There's a lot of bad AI poetry.
Yeah.
I mean, that has been given to me by my family. Thank you.
Is the family group text AI poetry?
I mean, a little bit.
Okay.
Sometimes. I do because I met Joe at a meetup that you do. Like you are trying to continue to facilitate genuine connection, right? Just like throughout your work and
I try, yes.
Yeah, I mean, is the way to do that us all getting together and talking all the time about stuff? What do you think?
Honestly, I feel like kind of starting from zero again post-COVID, post being a parent, which I'm like, I just want interesting people in the same room, and like I'm not gonna overthink it past that.
Yeah.
My conference brain was like, I'm gonna start a brand and it's gonna be about like the future, and I'm gonna like invite, and I'm gonna do this. And I'm like, no, just like let's just all get some beers. Like let's just start. Like I think to talk about authenticity, like let's lower the stakes.
Yeah.
Show up, hang out, and if you meet one person that you're like, we'll keep in touch, or even like I'll email you from time to time. Win, like total win. And it's also really cool. That feeling that you get when you get married, you're like, oh, all these people I enjoy are in the same room. Isn't this cool?
Yeah.
I can go talk to any of these people and this is really fun. And I love that feeling. So I think that's where I'm starting.
That's a great place to be starting from. You gave an Ichi quote. Do you have any other cool quotes in your back pocket as a parting?
Yeah, actually, mentioned Lauren Michaels. His biography just came out. Did you read it?
I didn't read it.
It's so good.
I'm a little obsessed with the Saturday Night Live movie.
Okay. All right. Well,
which
we'll
is
talk
also,
off air about that. Yeah.
Oh well, I mean, everyone should watch it. It's basically like for a producer, it's the most. It's how
Okay.
You haven't have you seen it?
No, but I'm ready.
It just shows that he had the one night, he had the one time slot at 11:30 to be able to produce this whole thing and multiple sketches. And how did he pull it off? And how did he get it to happen? The network was against him, and like everything was going wrong, and he just managed to do it, and it was like off the cuff. And I found it as a producer, I like wished that I was there. But go with the Lorne Michaels.
There's two things that I keep in mind. One is he kept saying over and over again, like, the goal is to stay on air. Like, you have to stay on air, which, there's a period of his career where he did not run Saturday Night Live, and he found like no one returned his calls, and he was kind of like in this backwater. And he's like, oh, I have to think about the long game. Like, even if this is incredibly annoying over the next 1 to 2 to 3 years, my goal is to stay on air, and you don't stay on air for 50 years unless you like roll with the punches a little bit. So, and it's also like a very Canadian approach, honestly, which is what he is. And then secondly, he says, we don't go on because we're ready. We go on because it's Saturday night.
Right.
And in the book, there's all these examples of him when he has a lot of time, he tinkers and he can't get it right. And he like goes over and over again and edits the same thing 9 times. And he needs that deadline. Yeah. And, to bring this home, when we're in this heads up, heads down world, you can always think you need more information. You need to meet more people. I need to learn more. But like eventually you go on because it's Saturday night.
The show must go
you need your
on.
own version of Saturday night. Like, I'm doing it and it's going to work or it's not, but like, let's put it all out.
Yeah. The show must go on. Right?
Yeah.
Continuing on. How can people find you? How can people follow you? What do you want people to know about?
SeanBlanda.com, name is spelled SEAN, or GateCheckStudios.com. I deleted my Twitter account after 15 years, and that was so
congratulations.
No longer, yeah, thank you. I don't know if it was useful or not, but
yeah.
And then those are the 2 ways.
Okay, and I mean, everyone should sort of look up Sabbatical because it's got a lot of inspiration.
Sabbatical.email.
Yes.
I'm doing it in seasons, which is true to the theme of the newsletter. So I'm about to do a new batch of interviews probably in summer.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Sean.
Cool.
It's great talking to you. I'm your host, Nikki Frankel, saying if you do what you love, you never work a day. The show is created by Preview Media. Our producers are Eleni Silos and Stefan Vlaschke. Technical support and editing by Toriako and Jasmine Jackson. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself and those around you.